That's all my junk, you guys.
There you go, bud.
Aww. Nice. Something on my mind lately is just to pare down even more. If you're gonna downsize and you're gonna get rid of stuff in your life, you need to consider what's really important to you. And this is a tricky question. Okay, I'm meeting a friend here for coffee, and yeah, he's gonna get this. And the story behind this thing is this was a buck that I harvested many years ago, and I did this mount with it, and I hung on to it for a bit, but I don't really have any use for it. It's nice to look at. For me, it means something because there's a story behind it, and but in the spirit of downsizing, I'm giving it away to my friend here, so that's what I'm gonna do.
There you go, bud.
Aww. Nice.
Yeah.
All right, that's out of the way. Peter's now got that Euro mount, and he was pretty happy to get it, so that's great. And it feels good to kind of release that as well, and just paring down in general. And I got more of that to do. Anyway, I'm gonna head back to the locker and carry on with this little cleanup project. That's all my junk, you guys. So I'm gonna get rid of some of this stuff, and I'm gonna get rid of this whole storage locker. It's been something on my mind lately, is just to pare down even more and let go of this place. So I've had it for a while. I've had a little desk set up in here. This is where I used to do my sewing. The desk and all this stuff you see on this side is going to come with me to Victoria. That's going to go to Nick's place, and I'm going to pare it down even further once I get over there. There's some stuff in here that has a bit of value to it, and I'm going to sell that stuff. And then I got a little supplies and stuff over there. That stuff I'm just going to use up. This side, that's everything that's like going to go. Life is pretty interesting, guys. We collect things as we go along. It's very lifestyle specific. In my case, this is my stuff. So all that particle board stuff you see in the back that I just loaded in the back there, that was just cheap furnishings that I used inside my storage locker. So I had a place to tinker and do a few things in that small space up there. It doesn't have a purpose for me anymore. So I'm getting rid of basically everything you see here in the van. That stuff, I'm going to repurpose it somewhere where it's useful, as opposed to just throwing it in the dump. That's all I'm going to say right now. I'm going to hit the road. if you're going to downsize and you're going to get rid of stuff in your life, you need to consider what's really important to you. And this is a tricky question. So let's break this down into the 3 categories. We've got the sentimental things, we've got the activity related stuff, the stuff that you enjoy doing that facilitates those experiences, and then you've got all the utilitarian stuff. So you're still going to want all 3 of those things. Let's say you downsize your life so that you just live in your shoes and you walk around, you stay at hotels and stuff like that. You're probably still going to want something that's somewhat sentimental that you care for. It might be a picture or something like that, and you keep in your wallet. It can come down to that. The other thing is the stuff that facilitates your experience, like maybe it's just the type of shoes that you're wearing and the clothing that you're wearing, and that helps to facilitate that walking around in your shoes experience if you're minimizing your life that much. And then the utilitarian stuff might just be a few things in your shaving kit and stuff for your bathroom kit, maybe a knife and fork or a travel mug or something like that. So you can downsize quite a bit, and you can sort of figure out what it is that's really, really important. And there's a lot to talk about with this, you guys, so I'll try to cover this as best I can without filling in too many gaps here. But let's say you want to move into a van and you live in a house. You have to think about, you have to be ruthless. You have to get rid of everything almost, and that's hard to do from here. You have to work with it. You have to decide, can I get rid of this stuff? Can I live without it? Because you're really creating a void in your life when you do that. All this stuff sort of fills up our mind, it fills up our heart, it fills up our consciousness. That's probably the most accurate way to say it. It fills up our consciousness. And all of a sudden, when that stuff's gone, your consciousness has got more space in it. Your mind's got more space in it. Your heart's got more space in it. It allows you to make room for other things. And it doesn't necessarily need to be stuff, because that stuff can weigh you down. For example, the weekend comes around, you've worked all week, now you got the weekend. You're kind of like, okay, I'm free. I can do whatever I want. But all that stuff requires your attention at one particular time or another in your life. And it eats into your weekend time and eats into your time off, and you're like, oh, I got to deal with this, oh, I got to deal with that, I got to deal with this, and pretty soon you're in this lifestyle pattern where you're just dealing with all this stuff to manage it all, and you're not actually out there enjoying the sporting goods that you have, having the experiences that you want to have. You're busy managing all your stuff, and you're going to work full-time, overtime, all that stuff to pay for it all. Your stuff ends up owning you, is what I'm trying to say. That's it. And so when you get rid of more and more stuff, you begin to see things differently. And maybe this video is just going to start that seed for you, and you're going to be like, oh yeah, like that water bottle of mine, I love it, but I have to clean it every week, and that takes me 3 minutes. And so you start adding these things up, and you're like, okay, that battery, I have to charge and maintain it. So that's more of my time every week. I have to maintain it. So every time you buy something brand new from a store, some cool friggin' thing comes out, and you're like, oh, I gotta have that. You buy that thing, you now have to take care of that thing in addition to taking care of everything else in your life. Or you neglect to take care of these things, and that is more often the case. People will neglect their stuff, and things just sit around accumulating dust, not getting used, all that sort of thing. And it's kind of tragic, because a lot of it's just going to end up in landfills and stuff like that over time. The idea is there's a lot of resources that go into making something that can be used as a tool in your life and really used. And when you minimize your life, you begin to appreciate things in a kind of tuned in, respectful manner, and you're like, wow, this piece of equipment is so valuable to me. There's a lot of resources that went into it, and I'm going to really use this thing a lot and take care of it. That's important to me. With that, I'm going to kind of roll into that second category, the equipment and sporting goods stuff and all that stuff that helps facilitate the experiences that you really enjoy. That stuff can be, sorry, I don't mean to give you the middle finger. That stuff is kind of the important stuff to consider when it comes to getting away. Sentimental stuff, that stuff can be really hard to get rid of. You're really taking something of yourself and you're getting rid of it. And that's the hardest thing to part with when it comes to paring down, is those sentimental things. You have to do it in your lifetime. it's inevitable. So whether you do it in your consciousness and you're doing it through different parts of your life where you're letting go of that stuff, or it comes to your end of days and you're done. It's, your body's used up, or you get there's some kind of tragedy or something like that, but it's you're done. Everything goes away all at once. None of that stuff belongs to you anyway. So you lose it all. You lose your sentimental stuff, you lose your sporting goods, you lose all that. In spirit, you're supposed still connected to it. There's some theories about all that stuff too. So, and I, anyway, that's something else altogether. So, like it or not, all that sentimental stuff, you're going to lose it all anyway, in the sense that when you die, you're not going to keep any of that stuff. So getting rid of some of that stuff while you're still alive, and being able to hold that as an experience, as a memory inside of your heart and inside of your spirit as you move through your life, and know that you're not, you're breaking this bond of attachment to a physical thing that is representing something in your life. This is just a coffee cup, but you're getting used to separating that while you're still alive. In a sense, you're learning the art of dying. That's pretty trippy, but that's what you're doing. You're losing that stuff, and you're learning the art of dying early on. That's a good thing. And that can be a hard thing for people to wrap their heads around, because dying is like the last thing that you want to do, and it should be. That's fine. It's kind of the crescendo of your life. Getting rid of that sentimental stuff, but as you create space and you do get rid of that stuff, and you open up room for more stuff to happen. More stuff might come your way. You might be sentimental with that stuff. You start to develop this side of your life and your brain, your consciousness, about how to interact and be with that sort of stuff, and you create this abundance with it, that you end up, like, some of that stuff comes into your life and you're like, I appreciate it for the moment that I'm appreciating it in, but I don't need to hang on to this thing for my whole life. I don't need to have a big house so that I can have many shelves to put all these things on, because they're so important. You're paying a lot of money to hang on to that stuff, you guys, and you're using up a lot of your own experience and your time to keep that stuff, right? You could be out there having new experiences and just being abundant, and allowing that stuff to come into your life and leave your life quickly is kind of like the art of dying, and the art of not hanging on to that stuff and downsizing. But it's really hard to let go of those things. And I'm not saying you should do it. I'm just talking about, what it means to actually do it, right? And my experience of it is very similar to what I just kind of laid out with you with that. Now, when it comes to sporting goods and stuff like that, this is something that you really need to consider. At least I needed to consider. My own experience with this kind of stuff was like, I was super passionate about fishing and hunting and foraging and those sort of things, as you guys know. And so I was like, okay, I have all this gear, right? There was, I didn't really have a lot because I've been kind of downsizing my whole life and stuff. But I had this gear, and I was like, okay, well, these things really matter to me a lot, because they facilitate me going out and experiencing something in my life that I appreciate a lot, and I love those experiences, and I do it a lot. There's a passion behind it. It's part of my life, and I'm not necessarily identified with that stuff, but I love to go out and do that stuff. It feeds this. It feeds this. It's good. That's something worth considering, to hang on to that stuff. However, let's say you're into like hockey or something like that. I'm willing to bet more often than not with most people, if they're interested in some sport, let's just say hockey for now, you're going to have extra. You're going to have a bunch of stuff that you've accumulated, and some of it you're sort of happy with, and you're not 100% happy with it, but you got a lot of the gear and tons of it, more than you need. And you can still play hockey when you downsize your life. But think of this. Think about getting rid of all these things that are sentimental. And you can sell some of this stuff. There's a lot of people out there that are going to want to buy that stuff on like Facebook Marketplace and stuff. And then you got your sporting goods stuff, and you're going to pare it down and refine your kit. That's it. You're going to make that hockey kit primo and minimal. You're going to make it small and tight and a really high quality package that helps you do what you want to do and what you're passionate about in a way that you've never experienced before. It's like you're going to take that hockey kit and you're going to be like, okay, we're going to get rid of all the hockey stuff, but we're going to build it back up in a small, tight, high quality package that might be really expensive, but who cares? You're getting rid of everything else. You're going to free up some money, but you're going to be able to reinvest it in a really tight, small package of hockey gear that is just bomber, and it's good and it works, and it's like it works really well for you and your application in playing that sport. So this can happen with fishing, it can happen with kite surfing, it could happen with kayaking. Any activity that you do, you can really downsize and refine it. If you downsize the rest of your life, you can make that one thing just pop and become really good. In my experience, like in my van, and what I've done is I've taken things into consideration. Like I live in a really small space, so my fishing kit needs to be small, it needs to be highly functional, and it needs to be able to provide me the experience that I want, and I don't mind spending a little bit of money. So my fishing rod up there, that takedown rod that I've got up there, that's $100 fishing rod. It's about $100 reel. I could have spent more money on the reel. At the time, that was what I could afford. The rod was a little bit pricey for what it was, but it's a high quality item that really does what I want it to do, and I'm really happy with it. It provides me that experience, and it's small, it fits in the van. So it's highly functional, it functions, it provides me the experience that I'm looking for. I got this rod behind me, which is an older rod actually. It's not really, well, it's kind of like my rod, but I got to give back to my friend that I gave him to it. So in any case, there's various things that you might buy and be like, this one I'll hand this back to my friend, it's going to live on his boat, so whenever I go on his boat or other people go on his boat, there's a fishing rod, they can experience that while they're on their boat. And if he doesn't want it, then that's fine, we can get rid of it. But I'm planning on replacing that with a high quality fishing rod and reel at some point in time. It takes time to get that high quality stuff. Occasionally, depends where I'm at in my life. I have to kind of be careful because I'm in a recovery stage in a way to kind of rebuilding my own life, that I have to be mindful of like what I spend and where I spend it and how much, all that sort of thing. So this is a long chat, you guys. I hope you're still with me and this is interesting, and there's part of me that almost wants to shut this down because it's too long and retake it all, but it's important to have this conversation, and I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to keep going with it. So when we get to those high quality or those sporting good things, you can refine your kit, get it all down, and get really precise and very good with it. And you can really think about how your gear might be able to cross over into one experience to another type of activity. So let's say you got 3 sports that you really enjoy. Look for equipment. You start to refine sort of the smaller mentality of like having less stuff, but you look for stuff that crosses over that might work for both activities really well. And so you're constantly like working out those things and re-engineering the way you approach some of those things, and then you might have a pretty awesome kit at the end of the day that you can go out and you can do those sports that you really like, and you might not need very much equipment to do it. So you might be able to live in a small space like inside a van, or maybe you live in a van and you've got a storage locker that I had for, I have one still, but like you basically keep some of that stuff there so you can go and get it and then go do that activity and return it there, but still live in your van or something like that. So there's ways to keep some of that stuff going, right? Now the other stuff is all the utility stuff. So let's say tools, appliances, all that sort of stuff. A lot of that stuff is, some of it can provide an experience. Depending on who you are, man or woman, like maybe tools and stuff, you have a little shop and you're really passionate about woodworking and stuff like that. That's different. That kind of falls into the same category as the sporting good stuff that gives you that experience. So if you want to continue to have that wood shop and work in that manner, well, then you have to build your lifestyle around all that. You can pare down in other areas so that you're not as wrapped up in those things, and you can be more focused on your wood shop and you can get like some really good tools in there that are just like primo and all that kind of stuff, and help up the game in there for you, so you can keep that stuff. But if you just have like all these power tools and all this stuff sitting in the garage, and every now and then and you use it, but you're not really using it, like you have to evaluate all this stuff. Eventually you're not going to use any of this stuff because you're going to die one day. You don't get to keep any of it. The only thing you get to really keep in this life, I think, is your experience. Like the experience of being bogged down with all your stuff is an experience, you guys. If that's the one you want, hang on to your stuff. Simple as that. It bogs you down and affects the way you're living your life. Man, this is a huge tangent. I need to have this conversation again. Should I do another take, you guys? When you're talking about all the utility stuff, like your tools and your appliances and all that stuff, if you're living in a house, you know, there might be purpose for all that stuff. But if you're like restructuring your life to live in a van, a lot of that you can get rid of, and you can pare it down a lot, and you can sell all that stuff, and you can, you know, pull some money on. Sometimes you're only getting a dime back on the dollar, but you can refine what's left over. You can rebuild those kits. You can rebuild your toolkit and go out there and be like, okay, we're going to get a new set of wrenches. Because mine was just a sloppy mess. But now, you know, it's really important that I have a small wrench kit, because I'm going to, you know, service my van and stuff like that and be self-sufficient. So you can, you know, get rid of everything to have a really small, tight, refined little package. That's what I did in my life. You know, this van, I put some money into this van. This is not a cheap build. This was not a small investment into a Dodge Grand Caravan minivan. You know, probably in here, I'd say I put about $20,000 into this van. So that's all the building material, the supplies, and all that stuff. And that's probably just the base cost of it. It might be more than that, but that's what I put into the van. You span that over 2 years. That was 2 years where I wasn't paying any rent. So that money was going into this van in a sense. Now I live in it full time. And I'm able to experience a little bit more than what I was able to experience when I just lived in an apartment and I was working my butt off to pay for everything. I'm still working my butt off. Downsizing, you know, you might downsize so you can work less. You guys, you can engineer your life any way you want, so that's up to you. But that's suggestive downsizing. So, I don't know, I could get into it a little bit more. I could talk about some of the specifics if you want. If you have any, leave some comments in the comments below, and you know, maybe I'll talk about this more and open up another discussion about it and have another video, or, you know, that kind of thing. Anyway, guys, that's it. That's all I'm going to share about that. Downsizing your life, it's really about letting go of this stuff. It's the art of dying, really. It's you know, some of it can be that way. It's hard to let go of these sentimental things. Sometimes you need to hang on to that stuff for a little while because you just can't part with it. Listen to that. If there's a part of you that's like, no, I can't, then you're not ready. Hang on to it for now, but don't walk away from the question of like, do you really need it? Continue to ask yourself that, because you might develop the capacity in time to be able to go, okay, I can let go of this now. I mean, I just did that with this big little, you know, downsize that I just went through in my storage. A bunch of that stuff I was hanging on to, like, for different reasons, but it was like I needed some time before I was ready to pare it down again. So, you know, allow yourself that, and you know, eventually maybe you pare it down to something where you're like, this serves me really well, and I'm happy. But you're probably always going to be in the headspace of paring down and having that refined kit and that refined approach, and you're always adapting all the time. So I mean, that's kind of the headspace that you're getting into, and in a sense you're also preparing your own spirit mentality for your own mortality. That's kind of a cool rhyme. Your own spirit mentality for your own mortality. But yeah, that's really kind of in part what you're doing is, you know, it's not inviting death into your life, but it's just you're becoming more comfortable with the idea of being able to let things go. So that hopefully when the time comes that it is time for your body to no longer function, and then this existence of yours comes to a close as far as living in a human body goes, you've spent a lot of your life already preparing your consciousness for letting things go, that maybe that experience is a little easier to work through, and maybe there's a better quality to it. And that's a pretty darn cool thing to work towards, because that's our end game for all of us, is our mortality. So if you can, learn to let go earlier on, I think that makes that transition and that process there, that crux experience, possibly better. These are just my opinion, my thoughts on it. So anyway, that's it, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye for now. I just have one more thought. The last thought about all this whole stuff about getting rid of stuff is it changes what becomes important for you. So experiences become important for you. So do relationships. So do the people that are in your life. Those become more important when you pare down and you lose your stuff or you let go of it and all that sort of stuff. So as you create space and things, there's going to be some changes and stuff, and maybe it looks like that for you, but I would expect that relationships begin to matter more, and the people in your life will begin to matter more. And you might have a refined kit or whatever it is. Maybe there's certain reasons to keep certain things in your life because you need it every now and then, but you don't need it all the time. So you can get into the mentality of being able to share that stuff with other people that are kind of in the same boat. And then maybe 3 people are kind of co-using a table saw, for example. And one guy really has a value for having a space, and so the others are kind of like facilitating all that. So depending on how we work together, people that is, and how our relationships are built, we can restructure everything so that we don't need as much stuff. Like, having a table saw in every single house on the block and a drill and all that sort of stuff, when a lot of this stuff is just sitting there, is ridiculous. There's so many resources that go into making that stuff that when it's just sitting around, it's just a waste. It's a waste, and it's irresponsible, and it's something that I think we should change. I think we should learn to share more and have these tighter relationships with one another. And there's ways to do that and explore that. Anyway, that's the bonus stuff. So we'll see you guys. Take care. Bye.